arson after setting fire to a cultural center.
נגד ציר הרשע במזרח התיכון. שוחחתי מספר פעמים הבוקר עם שגרירנו בארצות הברית, דוקטור יחיאל לייטר. אני מודה לו על האופן שבו הוא מייצג אותנו בארצות הברית, וברגעים אלה גם על האופן שבו הוא מחזק את עובדי השגרירות. שוחחתי גם עם חברנו היקר, שגריר ארצות הברית בישראל, מייק הקבי. השגריר הקבי עדכן אותי בחקירה המאומצת שמנהלות מספר רשויות.
As you can see, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Gideon Sa'ar, is currently giving a press conference regarding the terror attack that has occurred in Washington earlier today. Let's listen in. He's currently speaking in Hebrew, but we are going to bring you the English when he starts speaking in it. This follows an attack in the American capital where two Israeli embassy staff were shot dead leaving an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum in downtown Washington, D.C. The victims have been named as Sarah Milgram and Yaron Lechinsky. They have been announced as being a couple and being in the prime of their lives before they were killed. The Israeli embassy in the US says. There's been a suspect which has been detained. He's been identified as 30-year-old Elias Rodriguez. In the police statement, the Washington police statement, they've said that he shouted "Free Palestine" after being taken into custody, and officers will look into ties to a potential terrorism act. This has caused responses from the US President Donald Trump, who says the attack is so sad and is obviously based on anti-Semitism, while the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says security will be increased for Israeli representatives and at diplomatic missions worldwide. This is Gideon Sa'ar, the Foreign Affairs Ministry spokesman, speaking about said incident. As we've said, he's currently speaking in Hebrew, but we will give you the English as soon as we can. There have been images and information shared about the couple online, Yaron and Sarah, who have been named as the couple who were shot dead in Washington last night. Yaron Lechinsky and Sarah Milgram. They have been said that they were in the prime of their lives when a terrorist shot and killed them as they exited an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. That's from a post on X from the Israeli embassy. The embassy staff say they are heartbroken and devastated by the murder. We will bring you Gideon Sa'ar's statement when he starts speaking in English. He's currently speaking in Hebrew, speaking in Israel.
Recently, we have witnessed an unprecedented wave of terror attacks and attempts against Israeli missions around the world, with an emphasis on Europe. Israeli missions and representatives around the world are targets of anti-Semitic terrorism that has crossed all red lines. I spoke about this recently on our Remembrance Day at the ceremony for fallen Foreign Service members. I have been worried for the past few months that something like this would happen. And it did. And the list of fallen Foreign Service members has grown today. The Foreign Ministry in Jerusalem and Israeli missions around the world will lower our flags to half-mast following the murder of our workers. My heart today is also with the employees of the Foreign Ministry. They are struggling daily with difficult conditions on the diplomatic front. I am proud to lead these devoted people. They serve the country, are identified with the country, symbolize the country. They are subjected to harsh and poisonous attacks and wars. Today, 2 of them were shot by a terrorist. There is a direct line connecting anti-Semitic and anti-Israeli incitement to this murder. This incitement is also done by leaders and officials of many countries and international organizations, especially from Europe. The words are the modern blood libels. These libels about genocide, crimes against humanity, and murdering babies paved the way exactly for such murders. The global atmosphere has engaged Israeli and Jewish blood, has endangered Israeli and Jewish blood. This is what happens when leaders in the world surrender to the Palestinian terrorist propaganda and serve it. The statements and attacks blame Israel instead of Hamas. Hamas started the war on October 7th, is solely responsible for the war's continuation, and is solely responsible for the suffering of Israelis and Palestinians alike. I say today to these leaders and officials, stop your incitement against Israel. Stop your false accusations. Strengthen Israel in its historic battle against excess of evil in the Middle East. I spoke several times this morning with our ambassador to the United States, Dr. Yehiel Leiter. I thank him for how he represents us in the United States. I thank him also today for the way he is supporting the embassy employee in these moments. I also spoke with our dear friend, the US agencies, into this act of terrorism. The most senior officials in the American law enforcement system are closely monitoring this investigation. We appreciate this. Terrorism is chasing us everywhere, but we will not surrender to terrorism. Since October 7th, Israel has been engaged in a battle on multiple fronts. We are fighting against those whose goal is the elimination of the Jewish state. We who swore never again will not allow this to happen. This is an opportunity to announce a conference against anti-Semitism that we will lead in Jerusalem next week, part of Israel's presidency of the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance. The conference will be attended by foreign ministers and other ministers of IHRA member states. It will also include envoys for combating anti-Semitism and representatives of Jewish communities from these countries. The new anti-Semitism is also rising today on campuses, in the media, and on social networks. We are committed to fighting it with all our might. We thank the partners we have in the world for this fight. The Israeli people, I say this morning, hold your heads high. No other nation would have stood with such a courage, dedication, and resilience in what we have been through and are still going through during this last year and a half. Let us try to strengthen the unity among us so that we continue to stand successfully in the historic struggle that has been forced upon us. Am Yisrael Chai.
Thank you, Foreign Minister. We'll now take a few questions. Yes, please. The microphone is coming.
Thank you, Foreign Minister Dov Lieber with the Wall Street Journal. A few questions. One, can you give us a little more details about, do we know if the shooter was working alone? Was there any connection to any other organization? We know Iran, for example, has tried to target Israeli embassies around the world. Do you see any connection there? And lastly, I hear from Israelis, they don't feel safe in Israel, and they don't feel safe anywhere else in the world, anywhere they go. Why do you think particularly Israelis don't feel safe anywhere in the world. Why in this particular situation for the Israeli people?
The answer for your second question is anti-Semitism. The answer for your first questions must be given by American authorities and not by me, because they are holding this investigation, and I'm sure they will accurately report about it.
Thank you. Clémence Dibou for BFM TV, French TV. The French government, the British government, the Canadian government, they denounce, I quote, scandalous politics about Israel. Is that something that could lead to this kind of violent action?
I think I said very clear things, so I'm just I can't repeat things I said in Hebrew and English, but you are
but you didn't
invited. You are invited to rewind.
But you didn't mention any country. So, like, I'm French. So, do you think that the French government participates to that atmosphere?
Rewind.
Yes, please.
Mike Schwartz from CNN. Are you worried that this kind of event is going to be happening all around the world now? That we've gone over, that a red line has been crossed?
First of all, I'm very worried. And I want to tell you that during the last months and weeks, we had a couple of incidents in several embassies. Some of them even was not reported, mainly in Europe. And of course, and I've said 3 weeks ago, in our Memorial Day, that we will have challenging days, and I refer to this issue exactly in the continuation of the current wave of anti-Semitism. Will continue to expose Jews around the world, Israelis around the world, and mainly representatives of Israel around the world to terror actions. So the answer is I'm very worried.
James, please.
Thanks. James Shutter from the FT. Do you have any figures on how many attacks on embassies or embassy staff there have been since October the 7th, or for this year?
I'm sure that the spokesperson can collect the data and deliver it to the journalists, but I'm saying there is no 1 week without terror attacks or attempts to terror attacks around the world, and usually more than one.
And the second question is, can you give details of the roles that the two victims had at the embassy?
יוסי, אתה רוצה להתייחס? בבקשה, תקום תגיד.
Mission organizer.
Can you say which ones?
Which is which?
Yeah.
The guy is a research assistant with the political department at the embassy, and the second one, the lady, she was organizing missions and visits to Israel.
So there, two of them were staff members.
Yeah, of course.
Please. The microphone is making its way.
Thank you very much. I mean, so neither of them were kind of accredited diplomats in is it?
And Israeli
Local
stuff.
Right. Thank you.
First of all, you keep saying that you recognize a rise in the number of diplomatic attacks. Are you planning to limit the movement of Israeli diplomats across the globe? And can you confirm that the security have told the Israeli representative across the US not to attend any event, including the Jewish community, even not to go to a synagogue in the coming days? And are you planning to change the way Israeli diplomats are operate around the world? And I do want to ask you, you keep saying for world's leader, stop the incitement. But when they're saying Israel, mainly after the Prime Minister's press conference yesterday. Israel is offering the same, more destruction, more death. What do you tell them? Actually, the call was Israel offer more, same thing.
Not offer. I don't think it will be constructive to repeat here on anti-Semitic libels. That's for your second question. With regard to the first one, I'm keeping the instructions on security instructions for those who are responsible for that, usually and specifically for now, and that is something that monitored all the time. And when there are needs for different or new instructions, it is given. By the way, it's not my decisions, it's decisions of those who are responsible for the security.
Okay. We're moving on. Last question. Yes, please. No. Follow up.
James Mackenzie from Reuters. Could you just tell us whether, it's a very, tense climate internationally over lots of issues, the Gaza war, anti-Semitic attacks and so on.
Okay, there we have it. The Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Sa'ar delivering his response to the terror attack that occurred in Washington, D.C. on 2 Israeli embassy workers there within the last 12 hours. We're now joined by Gautam Mukherjee, senior journalist, to discuss this in more detail. Gautam, thank you very much for joining us. Gautam, can I get your immediate response to this terrorist attack that's occurred in Washington, D.C. just hours ago?
Well, it's shocking anti-Semitism, and to shoot people in the street outside a museum is absolutely appalling. I hope the American authorities and the Israeli embassy will sharply increase the security detail so that this is not repeated. At the same time, it is symptomatic of the anti-Semitism that has been stirred up in a lot of the universities in America. This includes a major university like Harvard, and this is not helpful. What people do not understand is that Israel has been under threat from the year of its birth. It is surrounded on all sides by Arabs, and the Gaza situation has been fanned by outside forces. It isn't restricted to Palestine and Israel. It is fanned by Iran, the Hezbollah, the Hamas, the Houthi. These are all outside forces that keep Gaza going. So, to shoot embassy officials, how would they like it if Palestinian diplomats are now killed in the street? That may follow.
Yes, how does this suspect's reported exclamation of free Palestine inform us of the understanding of the perpetrator's motives?
Well, the motives are basically to bring focus on what they call the genocide in Gaza, ignoring the fact that they started it nearly 2 years ago and killed a lot of innocent people, captured others as hostages, and this has gone on ever since. Now, Israel plans to take very strong steps and occupy the whole of Gaza. And I think that is one way to bring this to at least a muted end, if not an absolute end.
Gautam, Israel has been subject to quite a lot of pressure in the past 2 or so days. What role do you think media coverage will play in shaping the public perception of this incident?
Well, leftist media is going to speak against Israel, and the more right-leaning media is going to play, it closer to the Israeli line. The situation is polarized. As far as the government of the US, the Trump administration goes, they seem to have pulled back a little from absolute and robust support of Israel. They are of late quoting the Arabs as well in terms of the Abrahamic Accords and Trump's visit to several countries in the Gulf. So to some extent, yes, as you say, Israel is under pressure, but they have also declared that they might attack Iran directly on their own. It's just that it's a bit of a distance and they do need US support in order to pull it off. At the same time, the Gulf Arabs are dead set against anything that would amount to a full-blown war with Iran because they are afraid of the consequences on all of them who live in the Gulf, the Straits of Hormuz, and also broader issues such as China supporting Iran and possibly Russia, which is under sanction by the West, and America to some extent still.
Gautam, some critics argue that tensions are escalating over this Gaza war, and anti-Semitism, as Gideon Sa'ar has put it, is on the rise. What do you think a response to the claims that Israeli policies are, in fact, increasing the threat and the environment even abroad here?
Well, the point is, India has done a very smart thing by having a 3-day war, which certainly wreaked a lot of destruction on Pakistan and made it very clear that India has a superior armed force and that there would be more such attacks, perhaps more devastating ones, should they not mend their ways as far as exporting terrorism into our country goes. Both Ukraine and Gaza have turned into long, entrenched battles that seem to have no end in sight. Now, this is causing a lot of criticism because, wars without end affect everybody all over the place, and affects the economy, affects, security in general. Various people form alliances and axes to help or hinder the process. I think the main cause of anti-Semitism is the length of this war. It must come to a conclusion as soon as is practicable. If you like, the policies of Israel are one thing, but the prosecution of the war seems to be, less than, if you like, brutal enough to bring it to a close. Either you call it off and leave it half finished, which is also one way. To attempt to wipe out the other side is probably impractical, or you increase the velocity so that you achieve your targets quickly enough. Now, this applies as much to Putin as it does to Netanyahu. Both are lingering and going on prosecuting a war with moderate intensity.
Gautam, just one final question. Do you think it's surprising that these embassies, particularly in the United States where these protests have been so rife, haven't had heightened security previously? And do you think anyone should be held to account for the lack of security that these Israeli diplomats had in a heated area, let's say?
Definitely. Definitely, but then it's easy to say this in hindsight. Most of the attacks that have taken place in the United States on innocents in schools, in churches, in mosques, in malls, in shopping areas, both in Europe and in America for that matter, are a consequence of less than adequate security on the one hand, not enough screening of aliens and immigrants and what they call the bad element on the other. And of course, in America, the gun laws don't help because everybody is carrying a gun, is allowed to do so with minimum screening and easy licensing. And a lot of them don't have licensed weapons, but they have weapons. They are not concealed, or they are concealed based on whatever the user thinks is fit. So with all this, you would imagine in hindsight that anything to do with Israel would be very highly protected at this point in time. And that would apply, of course, to many of the Arab embassies as well. Maybe it is time to revise the protocol and realize that there is a war going on in Washington.
Yes, Gautam Mukherjee, thank you very much for joining us on the programme. Well, that's all we have time for, but we will continue to bring you all the new updates on this developing story and everything else going on in the world right now. Thank you very much for joining us.